Happy Monday, everybody, and welcome to your daily lighting critique. We've got our Academy of Animated Art students over here on the left. We've got our images here on the right. I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen before I forget to do that. There we go. All right. So the things that we're going to look at today, so we've got these still images to go through, but I'm going to go ahead and start. I'm actually going to be on another screen, so we're going to miss all your guys' faces. But we're going to go and hop over here and take a look at Kat's piece. So Kat, thank you so much for doing this. This is your last iteration from last week. What you did was you sent over a series of like just the individual lights or individual elements. You can see like some of this stuff is like all the fills, and then some of like the scene setup and kind of a look at what we were working with here. So one of the things that I always I always want people to consider is be very careful whenever you have like an opening like this, because even though it's off camera, with the way that indirect light works, you can actually influence the look of the scene a lot, and there could actually be more light spilling in this way than would naturally happen, because this would act as a shading element for some of the fill light, for some of the bounce light. So just it's not like a complete deal breaker or anything, but just be careful when you have openings like this, because it can allow like more of the skylight to creep in. It can allow some more light to creep in around her. Now in terms of, so I want to start there. And so what I did was I just found a few of the images that, like, so I was kind of looking through these and I was like, oh, there's some that kind of stood out to me as being, as having like more shaping to them and just kind of like more individual elements that I wanted to play with. And the three main ones, there was 4 here. So this really stood out to me because there was, like, you can see it's just like really nice shaping on her face, like rolling off of here. We're getting those specular highlights that we want, specular highlight in her skin. We're getting this nice direct shadow. This one was nice too because it's much more like ambient, like it's a kind of a softer, almost like a skylight. And then this one was, I just like getting a little bit of this slashing pattern across here, and then I like these two. Just like I thought that could be a nice piece to use, and then something like this as well. So one of the things I wanted to point out was like, because this one was labeled as a cool body fill, but looking at it, it feels to me much more like a key light, like almost like a sunlight, in that it's got this like more hard edge shadow, like it's more of a clear cast shadow that's coming across her this way. You can see like it just feels like a smaller light source, similar to how the sun would be in the sky, versus the sun, which feels to me more like a sky because it's very broad. The shadows are very soft. You're not getting that like hard cast shadow. And the biggest thing is that like the sun is coming in from the screen right side, right? Like you can see it's brighter on the left side of this pole. I'm sorry, the screen left side. It's brighter on the left side of the pole, darker on this side, and casting shadow going across her. So for me, having this key light hitting her makes more sense. So what I did was I just like inverted the colors a little bit, and I made this one much warmer, and I made this one more on the cooler side. And then I kind of mixed them together to get a little bit of the shaping going across here. Now, there are some problems with like this being too bright, and her face should be a little bit brighter. There's too much of a focus down there. But just in terms of like the structure of it, now we're definitely seeing like bright side of the pole, dark side of the pole. There's shaping coming across here. And then I kind of wanted to mix in a little bit of this light just kind of creeping in to get a little bit more up around her eye. It's a little like hard lined there. We'd want to soften that a bit, but overall, I just wanted, maybe I can add a little bit more of that in. But yeah, but like it's just the edge of this, we don't quite want that hard line. And then I just did some like other like little glowy element, and then I vignetted it down to get that kind of that slashing across. And I think what this is providing us with out of the gate is a little bit more of like directing the viewer's eye to her by creating these like leading lines this way. And then like I do like that you've got this brighter element here, but I think that this tone feels a little bit better, like maybe a little bit stronger than this, but like split the difference between the two. But I really like how we're getting more shadows up here that kind of create that variation along that back wall. And again, like just this shaping on the pole feels a little more strong, and we're not quite getting that double shadow element. Now, there are some things about yours that are definitely working better, like, again, toning down her shirt and her torso a little bit and keeping the focus on her face is really good. You know, you've got some more going on with the hair, and it would be important to get like more of a rim around the outside there. Obviously, the like a little bit more of the reflections in the surroundings are helpful back here. And like I said, you know, definitely splitting the difference on this bright patch here as well would be really, really beneficial. But I'm just thinking that like to really, you know, play this up more again as like a key light type feel, and then this is like a softer fill. And then some of the and the reason why I didn't choose some of these other ones, like this one it's almost like there's a subsurface scattering thing going on here.
Yeah, is that the back rim light or which?
This one is called Key Light No Light Blocker.
Oh, okay, because there's no light blocker. Okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the light blocker cuts out all the stuff that's coming through into the pole.
Right. But like, okay. Yeah, but it's like it still feels like you want to use a light blocker to kind of tone down. It might just be that some of this stuff, like the shader values, are just too high. Like if that pole's getting that much subsurface, but her skin is only getting like that high, you might just need to balance those two together a little more.
Yeah, and that rim light's like right next to the pole too, so that probably doesn't help.
Yeah,
because that's giving that rim. So. Yeah,
and this one I didn't use just because it felt very flat on her. Like it made her feel a little more two-dimensional, so I just because I didn't want to introduce that. This was just because there was multiple lights in there, and then the rest of these were. So does that make sense? Do you have any questions?
So basically, should I just flip the color on the sun and that one fill light, and that should get the kind of look that you're going for?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, if these, okay.
The sunlight is what gives the reflection in the back, so that's why that's kind of that, and I had to angle it away from that stupid wall that was giving me the reflection.
Yeah.
But so I can try to play with a little bit. Maybe it'll just be a cooler looking day or something. Yeah,
it's just that if if the sun's coming in from the screen left side, it's not allowing us to really hit her face that much. Where this direction makes it feel more aspirational, and more like she's looking into the light a little bit. If the reflection doesn't work out too well on the back, we can you can always do a pass. Like basically you would turn this like a reflection pass on that, and just dial that in the comp.
Okay.
And then what was the other thing I was going to say? Oh yeah, and then like if you have this, the other thing that I would do is not necessarily use a light blocker, but if this is this is where a spotlight would be really beneficial, because you could take that cone value and really kind of narrow it in on her face, and then because it would be nice to get a little bit more. I can just do it here. A little more darkness going down.
Not a spotlight is that rim light, so the back rim light. Everything else in there is spotlights.
Yeah, so that would be a good benefit there. But just like, can't type today. There we go. All right, and then just like tone this down a little bit.
Yeah, because you don't want her shirt to stand out more than her face.
Right, exactly. Just blur that just a little bit. But yeah, so like something like that would even, I mean, you could even push this up even higher. Like something like that. Yeah, just kind of centered in there, because I like the idea of just like slashing the light across her there.
Okay,
but yeah.
Do you want me to add another like ray of light coming through and hitting that pole or not?
The one on the screen left here?
Yeah, you were talking about you wanted to kind of have like another diagonal slicing.
No, it's more about isolating this light to that area as opposed to adding another light. You know what I mean? Like making this light kind of slash across.
Okay.
So yeah, I would give that a go from there, but I think that works out really well.
Okay.
Cool.
I'll work on that today.
Great. Awesome. Okay, let's hop back into the stills. We will do Dani, and then we will do Vanessa, and we'll see if anybody else arrives. So Dani, of course, has been going a little nutty with the candlelight here, and seeing, like trying to get it to not hit the ceiling. And we were talking about offline about how like lots of times in photography things are photoshopped, things are manipulated in a way that'll make you want to pull your hair out. So just and like this feels like a render, but just because it's a render doesn't mean that you're not like fiddling with things. Also, you can kind of see it looks like there's something arcing up back here, so it looks like the ceiling is probably V-shaped up there, which feels like it would be very high. So let's take a look here. So let's do, there's this one. So yeah, I mean, you could even take this and make it like a chapel ceiling, like my architecture words are escaping me, but like a V-shaped, a cathedral ceiling. There it is. And then that could work to darken that up there as well. I would say for the overall color, one of the things you should watch out for is just like this has got a really nice color, like a warm without being too saturated feel to it. I think you could probably pull back the saturation of yours a little bit. And then let's see. I think candlelight can be tricky because there's something about like the fall off of these lights where it's brighter around the source and it falls off a little more quickly. Like, I mean, obviously like this very bright dot is bright, but I think the light in this area should be a little brighter, and then like it should like there should be more dark areas in between them. With right now they're kind of coming to like the values are kind of coming together a little bit too much, so I would just like isolate them a little bit more as pockets. Do you have any questions? How are you doing with this?
Yeah, it was just about the back wall, how to light it, because theoretically there's nothing affecting it,
right?
Because the candles don't reach that far from the chandelier.
Yeah, no, I know it's yeah. I mean, usually what I do, I mean, there's a couple ways of going about it. Like, what I would do in a scenario like this is to place the practical lights where they are, like the practical lights where they are, where you want the candles and that kind of thing, and just see where the lighting is falling naturally, I guess. And then you can start like goosing that a little bit by adding in some fill lights and kind of ambient light in the scene. Lots of times, like if I'm doing outdoor scenes, I'll actually do the ambient light first, and then bring in those pockets. I think we talked about that a little bit with this, with like bringing in like the ambient levels and then bringing in the candle light. It might we can go back and forth with it a little bit, and you can find your individual workflow. But I think that might actually work better. Something else too. Let's see this in the reference. Although it's not so much in the reference. One of the things that I was looking for was like indicating light in these reflective objects, like the swords and this like urn on the mantle there.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, because that can be a big thing too, right? Because like they don't necessarily, like reflective objects don't necessarily need direct light, but they need light behind them so they can reflect that value on there.
Yeah. As of right now, there's nothing hitting them.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean. Yeah. So I think. Go ahead.
With any like practical light source, I always try to have separate lights that make the practical light source look natural, and then separate lights to actually light the scene, or like separate lights for the effect that those practical light sources have on the scene. So I think that would help, especially with the candles, like clipping at the very top. It seems like you have those smaller lights actually trying to do all the lighting, but if you just had weaker lights to make the candles look pretty, and then have different lights to cast an effect, like a candle-like effect on the scene, I think would help. But
yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah, that's a really good point. That's something that you don't want to force your lights to do too much. Like obviously you want to push them to be as useful as they can be, but yeah, if getting them to do every element, like looking good on screen plus throwing the light that you want, then it's definitely a good practice to go ahead and break up those two functions. That's a really good point, Dana.
Yeah, like candles and fire, I feel like are never powerful enough in real life to light anything.
And so often on like film sets, they won't, televisions, fires, candles, like they'll introduce them on camera and then they'll set them off camera and then they'll use another type of light source to mimic those.
Yeah.
So that's a really good point. So I would say, do that for the next iteration. Focus on using the lights that you have now and dialing those in to make the actual sources look good on camera, and then maybe add in some, instead of like 7-point lights or 8-point lights on the chandelier, maybe it's just like a circular area light that throws some light up on the space. That might feel a little better. And actually, that would probably help your render times and. Well, it might not, but like it'll definitely help like some of the noise that's going around the room, because that's being generated from like 8 individual light sources.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
No problem. All right, Vanessa. All right, cool. This is hi. So you're getting some good, you're getting the good wrap coming in on here. I still want to pull down her skin tone a little bit in value. I think I still think it's getting lifted a little bit too much in the diffuse, and not and the specular isn't carrying enough of the weight yet. And I think that as we're getting closer in here, it would be nice if there was a little bit of bump in the lips as well. Like it feels like, mostly because I'm seeing the specularity in there, and I would like to, and I see these ridges in here, and I'd like that to be broken up a little bit by the specularity as well. Again, I think her garments look really good. I think the shaping on them is coming together really well. It's really just more about finding that right balance in her skin tone. But like again, these little brackets in her hair, the little hair clips that are in there look really cool. I think the blue value on the trim looks just about right. And again, like the shaping that you're getting in here is really nice and feels very natural. It's just about it's just about getting a little bit darker in that skin tone and allowing the specular to create more shaping. Because again, we looked at some other some reference and getting some cool specular roll off hits on her across her forehead would be really nice to get the shaping coming across there. I mean, we're seeing it here on this side a little bit, but just getting it rolling across the top, I think, would be really beneficial. What do you guys think? What? Danny's still focusing on candlelight. We'll let him. Jordan, what do you think? Do you have any thoughts?
I'm trying to put a thought together.
Okay.
I feel like she could use a little bit more, that skylight that's hitting her on the right side, I feel like could be pushed just a tiny bit more. Like just a sliver. Just to get, because it's like hitting her face, but I think it would look pretty if it got a little bit more, if it was a little bit brighter, just hitting her from that backside. Maybe a tiny bit.
It's also an interesting thing too, because with this skylight, it's a complementary color to her skin tone, which can gray out the skin a little bit. So it might be I'm wondering if just adding a little bit more saturation in that too, to counteract the fact that it's because you can kind of go two ways with it with the character. You can either really really push the color to get that cool value, or you can back off of it and make it more neutralized. But if you're kind of in the middle, it'll just end up kind of graying out on the character. Like you can either keep them on their warm hue, or you can push them into that cool realm. And sometimes too, I've done it too, where I'll if I remember did this on a bird that was very yellow in Rio, and they wanted a blue rim on the character, and it was kind of like I swapped out the material, and then to create basically a neutral fur material, and then put the blue light on it, and then comp that in, as opposed to trying to push that in the blue. So that's another option. I don't think you necessarily need to do that here, but just something to be aware of. The eyes are looking really good. I think the pupils can get a little darker. Like really make those pupils like just a touch darker than everything else, and it'll really allow us to focus in on those. Yeah. Danny, Diana, Kat, do you guys have anything? Any other thoughts?
I think you did a really good job. I think it looks really good.
I agree.
Do you like what I did on the top of her head? I think you can't see like a lot of it.
I mean, I think you could probably push it a little more. I think you did a good job, but I just think it just a little bit more. And I was gonna say this too. Yeah, the one thing that you've got and you're doing a great job is like seeing the subtle details, like the freckles in her skin. That you're doing a really nice job of. One thing too, and I was just looking at this. I'm wondering what this shape is in her eye. Like I don't know if that might be a reflection of something, but just something to look into. Yeah. Actually,
I have a question.
Yeah.
Is her screen left? There's this pink color. Is that like paint on her face?
These
The
dots.
little dots?
Yeah. No, not the dots. There's a pink color right before the highlight. Is that paint or is that light? Like, is it part of the character? Because I see a really hard line on her chin and it's kind of running away on her forehead. So I just don't know.
Are you talking about like this line? Is it like this?
Yeah.
Oh, that looks like light actually. I think. Yeah, it looks like this is where the like this sun light starts to fall off.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So maybe just try and soften that a little bit more. So,
Okay.
That's a good point. Yeah, cool. But yeah, this is looking beautiful. This is really, really nice. These notes are very minor. I should say that. Because overall, it's looking good. Okay, cool. So we've got... we'll do Jeff. So, Jeff, yes. So, Danny, did you bring this up last time, the light on the ground? I can't unsee it now. So, like, the fact that this is brighter than these is going to drive me crazy forever. So I would say that would be the first one, is just making sure that the brightness of this, which feels a little bit like a touch too bright, just because it's like it would be nice to get a little bit more variation in there, but then keeping that value the same as we go back into space this way.
Especially because it gets to the second purple pillar.
Right.
You can see the light touches it.
Right, totally. Yeah, and then, but I do like this feeling of like kind of the underlight from that light source, which I think is really cool. So that the first big note I'd have you hit is those the window light. The second one is her skin tone is feeling a little bit purple blue, and I want it to warm up a little bit. Let's see if I can just go ahead and grab this. So like. Like I think the color, I think the value is feeling pretty good. I just think that we could pull it away from that magenta tone a little bit more. Let's see, like just something like this, or because when you get too blue in there, it starts to feel a little steely, a little metallic even. So I'm wondering, yeah, maybe something like just looking at her skin tone, maybe something a little bit more in here. But I do like the value that you're trying to get there, which is working really nicely. Maybe like a little half of that. All right, that's a little too strong in the warmth, but something more along those lines. It's interesting. I would like. How would we do this? So we've got the light coming in here. That's going to hit her here. We've got these influences kind of creating her rim. I guess I'm looking at all the blue light attached to her, and I want to see more of that represented in her face and on her, like, because I can see it here. I I just want to feel a little bit like it might just be a little bit of a rim on her chin or something like that, just to feel a little bit more of that blue light on her face there. And then her satchel, her bag here that's slung over her shoulder feels a little low contrast. There's something about it that just feels a little lifted in value because, again, the pants right next to it feel like nice and contrasty. These buckles in here feel nice and contrasty. It's just something about that feels a little bit lifted. Yeah, but that's the major elements here that I'd like for you to work on. Anybody else before we move on to K's?
I think you can add a bit more shaping on the face. You have it's lit from the bottom and it's hitting her nose, her chin, and a bit of her lips, but her eyes and her forehead is very mixed up in the same shade, and it looks very mashed together. I think you can add a little bit to distinguish a bit.
Yeah, because we want to create some sort of variation, either top down or left, like vertically or horizontally or both. And you're right, like this region in here, for just her skin tone, everything feels a little bit consistent, and it would be nice. Yeah, I would say to create a little more shaping in there would be a good note. Yeah, those are the major elements for now. I think there's a couple other things that we can tweak, but we have until the end of March, so we've got some time. So I think you're good. But as terms of a starting point, you're nailing it. So this is really good. All right. So Kay, this was. So again, this is where we started with this. This was like 2 weeks ago. I'd have to look at the date on it. To where we are now is a pretty significant.
Awesome.
It's pretty awesome, right? Like it's pretty great. And I think I basically you took what would have taken me like 3 years and did it in like 2 weeks, which is pretty incredible in terms of like the amount of progress. So I want to applaud you for that. Again, I always like it when you guys post stuff and you're like, oh, no, wait, I made one more update, because I love seeing like that last little tweak that you made. And I think that this one was a good one. Like just having that color be slightly different is it's good to homogenize it back there. I actually think overall, I think this looks great. The only thing that I would do is just take down this little highlight there on the book. And just because I like the value of it rolling off, but just that little bit feels a little bright to me. I think this one's good. What do you guys think? Anybody have any notes on this?
Right.
I think it was great, right? Skin is specky, wings are specky, nails feel creepy. I don't want to be anywhere near this guy. All things are good, right? I'm happy he's a picture and not sitting on my desk. Yeah, I think this looks great. I think so. Do me a favor, okay, and just clean up that one, or just reduce that a little bit, and send it over, and we'll put this up in the Hall of Fame. So this is really great. So, sorry to make you wait to the end to just tell you did a good job, but that's kind of the way it works sometimes. All right. So before we break for the day, do you all have any questions about anything? I think you guys are good. All right. Cool. All right. Well, we'll break for the day. You guys are great. We'll let Dani turn off his lights again and get back to staring at candles. And all right.
I think my mic was muted. Can I ask a couple questions before?
Sure. Do you need to share your screen?
No, I actually posted the images in the feedback channel.
Oh, I see. Okay. Yes.
Yeah. So I wanted to learn about how to do this kind of fog or mist. There's both the fog aspect on with lakes, and then there's also doing the clouds with the variation. I was wondering how to go about doing that. What a workflow would be to get stuff like this in the visuals.
Sure. So, in order to get, let's see. Okay, so for these two images, so let's talk about this. Let's talk about the aerial perspective side of things first, right? The atmospheric fall off. So one of the things about this is determining whether or not you need to calculate this in 3D space versus 2D space, right? So like the obvious way of doing this, which is often done, would be to literally do like an effect simulation that would create these cloud elements falling back into space in 3D space. You know, create your, I forget what they're called, whatever like the volumetric like shapes are, the volumetric boxes are, and push those back into space. Those can be really difficult to create. They can be time consuming. So sometimes it's about like really analyzing what is the visual element that you need, and whether you're using it for a still or an animated shot, or like if there's a big camera move. So for something like this, a couple things that I'm seeing are the aerial perspective, again, the falling back into space, that's being broken up by almost like a noise pattern. That is this cloudy element, right? So it's just like this randomized noise pattern. So for me, one of the things I would think about would be, can I layer this together in the comp with a couple of different, like it's almost like cards moving back into space with different noise elements, either in 2D space or in 3D in the shader on this, right? I think you could probably get away with that if it's just like a still image or something like that. For something like this, you would need, so like with this one, do you see the way that like the light is calculating into this?
Yeah.
Like you would definitely need to build like a volumetric fog effect that would be able to interact with the light sources a lot more, right? And have that based on Y world space that would like fall off as it comes up, like kind of a foggy element. Like, I mean, there is fog that you can use in like Redshift or in Arnold. They have like fog elements, but it wouldn't provide this level of detailed volume and richness to it that the way that like an actual rendered effect would.
That makes sense. So it's like an actual full-on simulation that would need to do for that.
Yeah, or like a Houdini one, or you could do. I mean, you could do it in Maya too. It's just a matter of like, because like there's just, it would be very difficult to simulate this level of light interaction with this, you know, and something like this. So it's like anything else, right? You stop thinking about it in terms of what it is, and start thinking about it in terms of what visual effect you want it to actually play on your scene. So it's a matter of like is it like, you know, is it just like fog, like kind of ambiently floating along back there? Like, could you just like do a slow moving noise pattern in the background of Nuke? Like, possibly, especially if it's odd, you know, like if we're focusing on something small in the foreground, you can get away with that. My favorite, and I'm sure I've said this to you guys before, but like my favorite story from the last film that I worked on was we had this scene of these characters interacting, and the focus was on them. There was a city behind them that felt very dead, and like we were like, man, we need to put some cars or something moving back there. So the conversation was started about like, okay, so we'll need to send it back to this department, you know, like modeling. We'll take a look at the assets that we have. Can we put some cars back there? Then we'll need to do this. Then we'll need to render them out. Then we'll need blah blah blah. And the lighting artist, who the lead of that sequence, looked at it and he was like, let me try something. And he went back to his desk and he literally drew like 2 circles in, like, just used 2 radial dots, like one white and one red, and just animated them moving along and put them in the background and duplicated that a few times. And because he did that, like that, it was like, oh, that's all we need. Like we don't need to do more than that.
Wow.
Yeah, because it was just like a series of locked off shots. It was it had to be done like on 8 or 9 shots, but literally it was just like these little dots just moving, like a white one and a red one just moving, and then like a white one and a red one moving this way. So it's like it was a night scene. We didn't need to see much of them, and that's all that it was. So.
Okay.
So like,
wow.
Yeah. So if that's the case for this, like you could, like literally just like fake it entirely.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't want to take up too much of your time. I have like one more question.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask about like color space. Do you get,
Okay,
like,
thank you
pretty-
guys very much for joining us. It's been a lovely time talking to you. I will talk to you all very soon. Oh, no, we are out of time for the day. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
Go.
I'm kidding. Oh. Yeah, no, I'm just kidding.
No.
No, so I'm sorry, I was just joking. So color space stuff. What's your question?
So I wanted to like, is there any kind of like color workflow for like film to get like good colors for exporting or anything specific?
Yeah, I mean, so different studios do it different ways. Talked to Callahan about this. Like he talked about how they're using like 17 different color spaces. And every film that I've worked on, we've done. There's a different workflow for handling the color space stuff.
Okay.
The key and there's the key to it is maintaining your image's integrity throughout the entire process, and that means for us in the work, like some basics for it would be like you can do research into like an ACES workflow or a linear workflow, which is highly recommended. But like I said, that stuff can get so dense and so confusing and so theoretical to me that I do know that there's a lot of people who are working on simplifying that on the user end, which is going to be, I think that'll happen in the next year or two. So I wouldn't, but basically the biggest thing that you want to worry about is making sure that you have a dense, rich value range in your initial render that has you don't want to crunch any blacks. You want to allow an extended pixel range on your whites to go above 1 so you can get variation in there. And then throughout the process, you want to make sure that you're not doing anything to compress the file, to degrade the image, that you're going to start to crunch those values. Because all of these images, all they are a series of zeros and ones, just RGB values across the entire image. So a JPEG like this, if I took this and let me see if I can just do this in the exposure, or I gamma this down, something like this breaks the integrity of this image because these lighter values back here are actually just 1, and there's not variation in there, so that when I gamma correct way down, it just feels kind of flat and gray, and versus when I go the other way with this, these darker values in here start to crunch out. So lots of times when I'm working, you'll see it in Nuke. Up here at the top, you've got your gamma slider and your exposure slider. These are here to make sure that you're maintaining your image's integrity, right? So if you start, and this is just because I have JPEGs, and so you can start to see some banding that's occurring up here, some breakdowns of the image quality, because I know for us, in past projects that I've worked on, you deliver this final film to a color timing expert, who then takes the thing that you delivered and makes it the best it can be for 17 different formats, right? The number, I think it's the second time I've said 17, so probably neither of them are correct, the actual number. But because you have to deliver the film as a film projection, as a digital projection, as a 3D projection, as a DVD, as a Blu-ray, as a VHS tape, as a streaming service, and each one of those gets their own color timing. So when you're working, your goal is to provide the base thing that you're delivering to them that's going to give them the most flexibility to put those in whatever format that they need to. So in terms of the workflow, it's always make sure that you're checking your black points, checking your white points, making sure they're not crunching when you're adjusting the gamma, because you want those things to fall into place no matter where they are. And that's all the ACES stuff, the linear workflow stuff, color space stuff is hoping to achieve is a solid image integrity. Now in terms of details of workflows and stuff, like I said, there's each renderer I think don't quote me on this. I think Abel's going to show Katana breakdown and how to use an ACES color space workflow. There's lots of papers written about this stuff that you can dive into, but it's all about just maintaining that image integrity throughout the process.
Yeah, if you want to know just simple ACES setup with Maya, I can also help or tell you some about that. Probably not this week, but
okay. Cool. Thank you.
Diana, actually, if you want, because again, this is the reason why I jokingly signed off is this is such an Achilles heel for me. I hate it.
I'm
And
pretty passionate about color spaces.
Are you really?
Like, yeah, I don't know. I just like to get.
Diana, I'm sorry to put you on the spot on a live thing like this. Would you mind just like recording your setup and how you approach it, or like?
Yeah, I mean, I probably won't be the best person to like explain exactly what every step is doing, but I can definitely show like what to do, like what file to put where, so that you can have the ACES workflow. But it gets more complex as you bring in some Nuke and other texturing programs and stuff. But within Maya, yeah, it's not that.
It's more and the other reason my aversion to it is that everybody, like, there are a lot of people who think that because the way it's written, it's like, hey, if you just have like an ACES workflow, you'll make beautiful images every time. And it's like, it's not the case. You still have to light well, you still have to compose well, you still have to do all that stuff. So, but yes, Diana, that would be huge if you could show like your Maya to Nuke workflow or whatever you do.
Yeah, because not like using OCO and not using OCO actually looks like really different. So
yeah,
I'd be happy to.
Yeah, that would be great. So no pressure on that, no time constraints, because it sounds like you got a busy week. So, but yeah, I know I would benefit from that, so that would be great.
All right.
All right, guys, we're gonna sign off for today. Before anyone asks me any other questions that I don't like answering, no, just kidding, I'm kidding. All right, you guys be good, and I'll talk to y'all very soon. All right, be good. See you tomorrow.
Later.